Shrek and Jennifer Lopez were sitting in a bar chatting. Shrek was wondering if he was the strongest ogre in the world, and J-Lo was wondering if she was the most attractive woman on the planet. In walked George Clooney and Brad Pitt. They want to know who's the best-looking man alive. So Shrek says that they should all just go home and consult with the magic mirror on the wall. They agreed to meet at the bar the next evening to report their findings. The next night, Shrek comes in and he's all smiling because the magic mirror told him he is the strongest ogre on the earth. And J-Lo comes in all happy because the magic mirror told her that she's the best-looking gal on the planet. George Clooney and Brad Pitt show up, and they are incredibly mad. They want to know, who the heck is Father Jim Greenfield? I thought that this would be a great start for a homily on humility. The Pharisee and the publican remind us of one simple fact: comparisons are odious. I surmise that this parable more likely shocked the first century hearers when Jesus originally told it than it does us today. Back then, the Pharisee was telling the truth and doing the right thing, but with the wrong attitude. The tax collector was also telling the truth, but he was doing the wrong thing. However, he had the right attitude. So his parables are meant to do like a little existential punch. They had to refocus. Today, I wonder if this parable really does shock us. We've seen too many religious leaders topple from acting Pharisaical. Just think of the best picture: Spotlight, Cardinal Law. We see too many political figures acting with pomposity. Fill in the blanks. Even reality TV, and someone once said that's an oxymoron in itself, where people try to become big and famous by putting others down in the process. But I bet for many of us here this morning, on this day of retreat, we're really not filled with vain pride like that Pharisee. I think our issue is more subtle, and it's a temptation to think that we might be imperfect, but at least not as much as other people. Someone said one time, we are all probably better and worse more than we really think. The truth for many of us is that we need to reframe our view and see ourselves the way God sees us. None of us is ever a self-made man or woman. All is gift. To think that we're self-made is a delusion, and it's a very dangerous road to go down. Listen to what Francis de Sales says about the reality that we are probably better and worse than we really imagine. I quote him: "There's no true glory in being a descendant of nobility, of having important contacts, or being popular. People can become proud and arrogant because they ride a handsome horse, or have a feather in their hat, or wear well-tailored clothes. But if there's any glory in such things, it surely belongs to the horse, the bird, and the tail." This is written in 1609. Others are proud of their mustache, their hair, bodies, or their ability to dance, play cards, or sing. This is utter frivolity. Others want to be respected because of their education, as though they automatically become everyone else's teacher. Education brings no honor when it turns us into snobbish boors. Honors, titles, and rank are like saffron, and saffron grows best when it gets walked on. I love that quote from the introduction to the Devout Life. It's from the section dealing with humility. I Googled walking on saffron, as I love what de Sales was getting at by saying it grows best when it's walked on. Here's what I learned. Saffron usually means classical European cuisine, not American farm food. It's meant for risotto in Milan, and bouillabaisse in Marseille, and paella in Madrid. But thankfully, it's also meant for chicken pot pie in Lancaster County. Saffron, therefore, is also a humble spice. Why? To practice humility is not to beat ourselves up about our shortcomings or puff ourselves up with praise. Mark Twain once said, "Man is the only animal that blushes or needs to." Humility teaches us not to compare because we will despair. It teaches us not to wonder who is better, who is worse, or who is the first. Humility is ultimately honesty. To be humble means neither to exaggerate nor minimize, but to accept what is. Anything else slams tight the door of mercy. In conclusion, far behind that Pharisee was a man whose words were simple. "O God, be merciful to me, a sinner." There are no comparisons in his prayer, just the plain truth. It's he who goes home not lost in his own ego, but one with God. These Live Jesus gatherings are wonderful opportunities for all of us not to get lost or go home in our own ego. Someone said as they were coming in today, "You loved coming here for Lent." Recall, we began the season of Lent with ashes on our foreheads. As a symbol, they're blunt, primal, archetypal, and they speak the deep language of the soul. Ashes are dust, and dust is soil. Humus, the Latin word. That's where we get humanity and humility. To put on ashes is to say publicly and to yourself that you are reflective in a penitential mode, that this is no ordinary time for you. One of my favorite spiritual writers of the 21st century, Ron Rolheiser, he says this: "We all know the story of Cinderella. The name itself literally means the little girl, puella in Latin, who sits in the ashes, the cinders. Hence we get Cinderella. The moral of that story is clear. Before you get to be beautiful, before the glass slipper is placed on your foot, before you get to marry the prince or the princess, before you get to go to the great feast, you have to spend time in the ashes. Humble, smudged, unglamorous, and waiting. In the story of Cinderella, therefore, we have a theology of Lent. There was a family, they were from Lancaster, they were Amish. For the first time in their lives, they went to a mall, bigger than Tyson's Corner. They get there, they split up. The mom winds up in the department store in front of a bank of elevators. She sees this old man waddle over, even older than Dennis Lucy. She hears the bing, the light, the doors go open, he gets in. Next thing you know, bing, the light, the doors open. Out walks a Brad Pitt lookalike. Same thing happens. Old man, bing, bing, opens up again, George Clooney lookalike. Same thing happens, Ryan Gosling lookalike. Just at this time, the daughter is running down saying, "Mom, isn't this place great?" "Quick," she says, "go get your dad." That elevator is another way of saying we need to go into the desert, to sit in the ashes, to let the doors be closed for Lent. Then let it open again at Easter as changed people. Francis de Sales says that our misery is the throne of God's mercy. And so as God opens the doors of mercy, he opens the doors to our hearts where we sit in the ashes of this Lenten season. We may not look like Beyonce or Brad Pitt at the end of Easter. God only desires our hearts and could care less if we have wrinkles. All we need to say in response is, "Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner." Mercy and forgiveness do not change or perhaps erase the past, but mercy and forgiveness certainly enlarge the future. May God be praised.